Right. So uh, just give me a minute. Okay. So far what we did is we did the installation and we have seen the architecture, and we know bit of OBIEE, right? Now what we look at is okay, we install it, but again, how do we know how the OBIEE works and what are the different components that we get started with, and how do we manage these components? So installing is fine, but at the same time, once you complete the installation, what actually it does, what are the different files it creates, what are the menus it will create, and how do you know that your OBIEE is started? How do you know that your OBIEE is stopped? So that is very essential, because at any point of time you should be able to know whether your OBIEE is running on your system or not. If not, you should be in a position to start it from different ways. At the same time, you should navigate to the OBIEE browser, or you need to know the ports, or you need to know the URLs, you need to know the usernames, passwords. These are the very basic things and important things as well, because I remember people working, when they are working in OBIEE, when you ask for a particular screen or URL, and they always go to the favorites, and from the favorites they select, and they don't remember even the port numbers and names, all those things. So that looks weird. When I say weird, I mean, if you really have some real-time knowledge on OBIEE, you're doing that, probably that is excused. People may not really care much about, but again, if you're learning OBIEE and you're trying to go to any company as an OBIEE developer or an lead or consultant, whatever it is, if you are mumbling around and if you're trying to find the screens, then that's a little difficult for you, because people get to know that you're naive, right? So navigating around the tool is very, very important for you to show the confidence, because you should understand. It's not like you by heart, or it's not like you uh, just follow some instructions and all. You should understand how the tool is working. So it's not only just navigation. Suppose say there is a troubleshooting required if a server is not running, and your login is not working, and you want to identify the query logs, you want to identify the server logs, you want to identify certain files. So then obviously you need to know the navigation, you need to know what does this actually install. Okay, so I'll start showing to you, like, what are the different things that we have inside the OBIEE. So the moment you install the OBIEE, if you go to the start menu, the first thing that it will do is it will install a menu. So there is a menu. So this is Oracle Business Intelligence. So you'll have Oracle Business Intelligence on your menu, and you'll see all these different shortcuts. So now, out of all these shortcuts, most of the times we don't use some of those, and the frequently used shortcut is BI administration. This is the BI administration. So BI administration is actually for the development of the repository. So you develop the repository, or you create the repository, or update the repository with the BI administration. It's kind of an Excel sheet. I mean, just kind of an Excel sheet where Excel software, where Excel can open a sheet and modify a sheet and edit the sheet, or create a new one, whatever the changes that you want to do, right? So you can do it. So that's kind of a designer. Okay, BI administration is a designer where we can create and modify our repository. And there is a start BI services, and there is a stop BI services. Start BI services is to start the OBIEE services, and stop BI services is to stop the OBIEE services that are running. Okay, these are the only three important things that we should care about at this point of time. BI administration for the development, start and stop. Okay, to start it, you use this link, and to stop it, you use this link. And the job manager, catalog manager, will come back and we'll discuss later. But anyway, we don't really use these things much because we also have the cloud-based or browser-based catalog manager available. Okay, so we don't essentially use this thing, but I mean, so they keep certain things for the backward compatibility because these tools being used for quite some time. So if somebody is get used to the catalog manager from this utility, then I know they are providing them the same. But essentially, you don't need to do. But okay, so now you have a BI administration. We know what it is. BI administration is for, and start and stop BI services. So now, how do you start, and how do we know that it is started, and what are the prerequisites? So the first thing that you need to do before even you start the OBIEE, you need to start your database. This is very, very important. Without starting the database, you cannot start the OBIEE. That's period. Because you remember, like when we are installing OBIEE, it is dependent on what? Database, right? Because at the time of installation, if you remember, we have given two schemas. One is dev underscore BI platform, dev underscore MDS. These are the two schemas that is there in the database with set of tables, where these tables is being used by the OBIEE to function. Okay, so you are starting the OBIEE without database is being run. What happens? Now OBIEE starts it, and at some point of time when it is starting, it tries to connect to the schema dev underscore OBIEE for certain details, and it is not reachable. So obviously it continuously fail. So your server doesn't start without the uh, database because those schemas is required. So first thing that you need to make sure is you have to start your database. I mean, your database not necessarily to be on the same system. It could be anywhere. I mean, if you actually look at the real time, your database is never on the same system. So you have a database server in different place, and your OBIEE running in different place. But essentially, though they are running in different places, they are entirely networked, right? So instead of giving a local host, you always give the server name or IP address of that particular server where your database is running in port number. So technically, it makes no difference whether this database is running on the same system or a different system for OBIEE because it can connect to the same details that you provide. So in our case, like database is running on the same system. So how do I see like if my database is running or not, or if I am okay with the database? So you have to go to the Windows services. If you don't see the Windows services as a shortcut here, or you can simply type services in your search menu. So you can go to the services. So when you install the database for the first time, and this when I say first time, when you just install the database and you just install the OBIEE, right? So if you look at it here, database will install a couple of services. Couple of services are kind of redundant where we don't need it. They're useless. So what we do is we identify the services required, and we kind of we stop the services that is not required. Okay, so if you look at here, there is a listener that will get installed, and there is a Oracle service ORCL. This is the actual service of your database. So ORCL is the name of the service where on your system the database is running with the service ORCL. This is one way to identify. Okay, so other than these two, so at this point of time, only my listener is in automatic mode, which is when I start my system, my listener gets started. That's it. Nothing. I mean, because listener is lightweight, so I don't really need to start it manually. And you can start your Oracle service ORCL. So the reason I kept manually is when I start my system every time, I don't want my database to be running because I may be using OBIEE. Sometimes I may not be using. Sometimes I may be only reading the things, not doing any practice or something. And at the same time, it's unnecessarily slows down your system because it fights for the resources when your system is starting. So always keep it in a manual mode, preferably. And since my system is started now, I can rightly say start. So my database will start now. Okay, so that way you're making sure you're not starting your database at the Windows startup. sometimes which will cause an issue, but yeah, most of the times it should work fine without any problem. If you think, I mean, you don't really want to care about all doing all these things, you can keep it in automatic only, not a problem. Right, so just close it, so it will start. So if you see here, there is one more service which is Oracle DB Console ORCL. We don't need this service, but when you install the database, this service is also in an automatic mode. So what I did is I kept it in a manual. So how do you make it automatic to manual? Simply double click on the service, and the startup type, you have many things. Automatic is when you start your system, the service will automatically start. Manual is it won't start unless you start it. Disabled is kind of, it will go into disabled mode. There is an automatic delayed restart. So this is kind of, delayed restart is like, it will wait for the Windows to start, then it slowly start. In the sense, it won't directly start when your system is starting. Probably it will wait till all your Windows processors get started and everything is ready, then it will start it. So probably you can also choose the option of automatic delayed start. Okay, so since I don't need it, I kept it manual mode. So there is a one thing called Oracle VSS Writer. So I just made it disabled or make it manual, and scheduler ORCL, anyway this is disabled. Okay, don't touch these Oracle Process Manager. We need this one, Oracle Process Manager. Don't disable it. It is required. This is the core OBIEE process. So I'll explain you what is this process at a later point of time, but it is kind of heart of your OBIEE. So, and again, don't start it on your own. So it will get started automatically. That's fine even if you start it, but again, when you start the OBIEE, this process will automatically get started. So I'll show you how does this work. I mean, for some reason, because of my installation, I have two instances, but usually you have only one instance. So Oracle Process Manager. So don't mess with this one. Just keep it as it is. But other than that, your Oracle processes, you need a listener, you need a Oracle Service ORCL. That's it. Only these two, nothing else. Just to make sure your database is running. So yeah, I mean, it doesn't really help in any other way other than saving your system resources. You stop the unnecessary process, your system will be kind of a faster, because you are stopping this Oracle services that is not required. Okay, so that is the first thing. And again, your database is ready, and you know that your database is running. So all you have to do is you have to log in first, log in once to your database and see that if it is running fine or not. So how do I make sure that if my database is running? So I can go to my programs, and you have your database somewhere. This is Oracle database 11G, and you go to the application development. Sorry, where is my you go to the application development. Within the application development, you have the two things. One is a SQL developer. I mean, I believe many of you guys already know this, but excuse me if you already know, but just making sure we are going on a track. So there is an SQL developer, which is a GUI utility where you can you have this kind of a small software SQL developer where you have the GUI facility like a Toad and all general things, right? So you don't need to actually use a command line utility. It is just a small software, and SQL Plus is the basic standard command line utility. In 11G, they have not given the traditional SQL Plus that Oracle is been giving. So this is a kind of a command line utility SQL Plus. The SQL developer is the GUI where you can do many things there. So let's do with the SQL Plus for now, just to make sure we are able to connect. Then later we'll start exploring the SQL developer. So I use an SQL Plus, and I log in with my system user just to make sure I'm able to connect. Right, this is your database. I've connected it. So at times, database will come up with, database has standard users, right? Suppose say I may have a user like a Scott, or I may have some other user like, so after installing the database, when I try to connect Scott and Tiger, so sometimes it gives me saying user locked, because by default when you install the database, the users other than the system users are locked because of the security reasons. You install it, you're not able to use it right away. So they are locked. So you have to unlock it. So for unlocking these users, you have to log in as a system user or sys user first. Then I'll give you the commands here just to make. I mean, it may not be required, but just make sure that. So alter user, assuming that your Scott user is locked. Okay, alter user Scott account unlock. This is the command where you have to use to unlock your user from the command from the SQL. Okay, so there's another after unlocking the user, you have to reset the password. So these are the two things that you do for the other users. You don't need to do this for the system user because they are already available. They are not locked. So if you have to reset the password from the SQL Plus, alter user Scott identified by Tiger. I mean, if the password is Tiger, simple. So I mean, for any user, if it is locked, use the first command to unlock and use the second command to change the password. So and that is your database part, and you can log in. That's once your database is logged in. So all you have to do is you have to simply, the second step that you have to do is you have to start OBIEE. Right? So to start the OBIEE, you have to go to the start menu, programs, Oracle Business Intelligence. They have something called Start BI Services. Start BI Services will start the OBIEE. So for the first time when you're starting, it will ask you for the username and the password. When you install for the first time, it will ask you for the username and the password. And the username is WebLogic and password is whatever the password that you have given. So I believe you give a welcome one. So when you provide the password as a welcome one at the time of OBIEE installation, give that password. So remember when you're typing, make sure that it's a case sensitive. That's the first thing. Second thing is your password doesn't type. In the sense, when you're typing the password, it doesn't show you the characters on the screen. So don't get messed up with, because when you're typing and after typing 2-3 characters you realize that it's not typing and you go back and forth and type something, then it will take the wrong password and it will forever will use the same password. Of course we can fix it and we can remove that security file, but and again it will ask you for the password, but make sure that you start with the username and the password. Give some attention there, where so that way you don't really need to kind of delete some password file or something. So that is the one important thing that you need to do when you are starting your system for the first time. So next time onwards it won't ask you for the username password, because when you give it for the first time it will save it somewhere, save it in a security file, where next time you start it will automatically take it from there. Okay. So if you see here, it will start two windows. One window is command line window. Both are command line windows, but this is kind of it is starting your WebLogic server. So the startup process is two things that you need to remember. So what does the start will do? Okay. So essentially the start OBIEE will do two activities. Start OBIEE, I can say admin server in this point, or I'll say server. Let's not confuse you. So in a WebLogic there is two types of servers, admin and manager servers, but I think we have only one admin server. So it will start the admin server. That's the first thing that it will do. Once the server is started, it will start OPMN. So OPM is Oracle Process Manager. Right. To remember, this is a Windows service. You can start it. You can also start it from the Windows. I showed you, right? There is a OPMN process, Oracle process manager, that service I'm talking about. So but again, you don't need to start it manually. When you start the OBIEE, this the service is automatically started by the OBIEE itself. So this service, OBIEE will automatically start this service. So these are the two things that it will do. So this window, so it's actually it's starting. So now there's two windows set. So the first starting the admin server, then when it is started, once the WebLogic and the OBIEE server is started, then it will start the Oracle Process Manager, then it will get closed. So you'll have only one window that is running. So in Windows environment, in your environment, you have to keep this process running if you want to use the OBIEE or if you want to access the OBIEE server. Because if you close this window or if you stop this window, your OBIEE process will shut down. Okay, so there is no way where you can run it as a service because it's a Java based thing. So in Linux, probably you can run it as no hop, and you can keep the server running without having the Windows. But in Windows, you have to keep this process up and running, and when you want to stop it, and you can control C, or you can just close it, or you can go to the menu again, and you can go here, Oracle Business Intelligence, you can say stop PA service. So this is a systematic way of stopping it. If you say stop, then again it will ask you for the username password, and you give the username password, then it will stop the process one by one, kind of clean shutdown kind of stuff. Okay, so this is how you start and stop the OBIEE. So I mean, the OBIEE startup will take a minimum of kind of 5 minutes. If your system is very good, it will be quicker. But again, yeah, I believe it will take somewhere between 5 to 10 minutes. So I mean, when it is running, have some patience, and since it will take some time, it will keep writing some log entry. Sometimes even it will write errors like this. But again, so it's not necessarily that your server is having some issue. Probably it is trying to identify some things and is not able to find it, and it's throwing errors. That's pretty normal. Okay, so not necessarily it has some issue. Okay, so we'll wait for the server to start, and okay, meanwhile, so does anybody has any questions on this so far? Are we good? Okay. Okay, so I'm waiting for the servers to start. It will get started. Once the server is started, we'll actually go and log in and see how the OBIEE looks. See, if the database is a remote database, if the database is not in your system, you don't need to specify anything, because at the time of installation, if you remember yesterday, we have given a string, right? Localhost colon 1521 colon ORCL. So that is the connectivity string where we are specifying the OBIEE that a database is running on some system. So if you give localhost, then it will always connect to your system. But again, in real time, you don't do the localhost, right? What you do, you give the system name. You give the system name an IP address. So what it will do is when the OBIEE is starting, it will connect to that particular system, and it tries to connect to the database on that particular port. So if the database is running on that system, then it will automatically connect to that particular database and start using it. So that's how it works. So if your database is remote, you don't need to worry about. I mean, you don't need to specifically or explicitly give it every day saying, go and connect to the database. It won't ask you. So at the time of installation itself, you're providing the location of the database where it can go and connect. And all you need to make sure is the database is running on that system. Right. So if you see here at this point of time, you see only one window. The other window is closed. We missed that part, but other window is closed. There is only one window now. Okay. So how do I know that if the OBIEE is started or not? So if you see the screen at the end of your server startup, most of the time, 90% of the time, it will open a browser. So why that 90%? Sometimes it doesn't really start. I don't know. Uh, Probably there could be some issue or something, but yeah, 90% of the times it will open a browser. It shows that yes, it is started. So even if to open a browser, it won't actually open it properly, because if you see there's a 500 internal error, it says that the server is not running. So the reason is um, there is two processes. One is the OBIEE process, other is the OPMN process. We see that Oracle Process Manager. If you see, in this we discussed the two processes, right? So this is the OBIEE process. What actually does is it will start this process. Once this process is completed, it will initiate this process. So at the end of the initiation, when this says start, and it will open a browser. So it opens a browser, it will try to access the URL, but this server is not yet started. It will take a bit of time. So since this server is not yet ready and it is still the browser is trying to access it, it will show you like um, unable to internal server. So if you give a minute or two for that server to start and you go and refresh, see, now you can see the screen. So just all we have to do is give a couple of minutes for it to start. Right, so this is how you start it, and this is how you are making sure that your OBIEE is running. So, and one more thumb rule, this is a Chrome, right? So never ever use Chrome. Okay, I mean at least now. Uh, so go for the Mozilla. Chrome is not supported in all the features. Some of the features you don't really see it properly in the Chrome, or some of them are not working. Probably no, it's not the fault with the Chrome. Probably in Oracle, they're not doing a proper testing, or they're not making sure the software is compatible for all the browsers or something. But yeah, Oracle does a good work on Mozilla, but not the other browsers. So at times, yeah, the reason I'm saying is sometimes you don't realize that it's a browser issue. You're clicking on something, but you don't see the drop down and see that you have done some mistake, and you have not deployed the repository properly, or you start thinking a number of things. But um, you don't even realize it could be a browser issue unless you struggle yourself and come back to me. Okay, so that's the reason when you start with the Mozilla. You start with the Mozilla browser, so you don't see those issues. Okay, so now I'm trying to open the same page what you have seen there in Mozilla. So it's a local host. So I mean, usually I give the local host because I have it running on my local system. So in general, if you want to access the OBIEE running on a remote or on some system, on some server in your network, right? So you have to give the server name, okay, and the port number. So OBIEE by default get installed on the port 7001. Okay, and the context URL and the name that you give to access the application is analytics, ANALYTICS. So localhost colon 7001 slash analytics, right? This is your login screen. So I log in with a WebLogic user. So remember, you have given a WebLogic at the time of installation. So that is the user you always use, right? And again, if you forget the password of the WebLogic, or if you mess up with the password of the WebLogic, you have to reinstall the total OBIEE. I mean, at least from our perspective. So probably if you are a OBIEE administrator or WebLogic administrator, probably you can do a better job by recovering the password, but for at least for you, rather than doing all the stuff, it is easy to what I say, reinstall. So that's kind of effort you require. So don't forget the password. That's the reason. Always give the password as a welcome one. So at least in the development environment, so that you don't really need to remember or note it down somewhere if you are giving some other password, because you may remember now, you may remember tomorrow, but after a week you may not, after a month you may not. So it's a sign in. When I'm logged into my OBIEE, so this is my home screen. I'll go to the home. So this is your OBIEE looks like. So this is your login page. When you log in, this is kind of a recent report that's been accessed, and this is the menus that you have and that you use. And this is the standard menu where you can say new, you can create a new analysis, dashboards, filters, reports, actions, KPIs, and all those things. This is the menu where you actually create your reports, and this is your catalog, which has a collection of reports where you can create different reports in your system. So you go back to home. This is your login. Okay, I mean, I just wanted to give you a kind of heads up how your OBIEE looks like. This is on the reporting part, where and there's one more URL you have, which is the enterprise manager, where enterprise manager is basically deployment utility. So if I have to give you the tools, then we actually start with 3. So I can say OBIEE analytics login. Okay, so how do you access this? http://localhost:701 analytics. Okay, this is your OBIEE analytics login screen, where you actually log in with the user web logic. I mean, I'm not trying to spoon feed, but just making sure. I mean, once we get started properly, then the rest of the things you don't need me go by step by step. I want to make sure that you have a right start, so that you don't continue to do the same mistakes. Sometimes what happens is, when we have a bad start, right? So we'll continue to do the same thing. So and the other URL is that we usually access is Oracle Enterprise Manager. So basically, Enterprise Manager is a manage OBIEE, deploy repository, config. Basically, we use it for doing all these things, right? So we kind of deploy our repository, we stop the server, start the servers, which is kind of manage, and we change the configurations. We do all these things in the Enterprise Manager. And what is the URL? So the URL is almost similar to the above one. So http://localhost:7001. So up to this part is the same. See, the above URL, this URL up to this part, this is the same, localhost:7001. So, and this one changes, EM, which is Enterprise Manager. Okay, and again, this also, the username password for this also is the same. Okay, it's one and the same. Now, if you look at it, like, how do we frame how do you interpret this URL? Suppose a HTTP is what is a protocol, because it's a web, right? Anything you access on the browser, it's a HTTP protocol. It's a browser. Okay, and this is your local host, which is the host where your OBIEE is running. So at this point of time, I have given localhost because my OBIEE is running on the same system. 7001 is where your port. I mean, when you install the OBIEE in your system, if you install it by default, it will take 7001. Suppose say tomorrow you go to an organization, how do I know, like, how to what is the URL? So you need to know the details. Unless you know the details, you cannot access the URL. So they need to provide you, like, what is the port it is running on, or at least you find it out somehow. What is the port it is running on by asking somebody. So you need to give the server name and the port number. So on what port that OBIEE is installed. So at the time of installation, whatever the port that you give, you use that port. And analytics is the context URL for your reporting. So this is a standard everywhere, irrespective of these things may change, but this won't change. Okay. Here also these things may change depending on where your enterprise manager is running, and on what port it is running. But EM won't change, enterprise manager won't change. So it's kind of www.yahoo.com or google.com. So now that's how you give it, right? So the same way here, the only difference is you give the port number, because if you don't give the port, it means you're accessing a port 80, which is the default port of the server. In our case, we are not accessing the default port. We are accessing a particular port called 7001, where our service is running. So that's how the difference is. Okay, so if you have to create your own login, so you can do it. You have to do it on the WebLogic level. So you have to go to the WebLogic, and within the WebLogic console, you can do it. We'll see it. I mean, I'll show you how to create the new users when we discuss about the security. Okay, within the security, we'll be creating our own users and managing our own users. So there's one more URL that you have. Yeah, but again, this URL you only use it when you are actually configuring the security. This URL is called a console. Localhost :7001/console. So this is little administrative side. So in the sense, this is actually a WebLogic administration console. Okay, this is a WebLogic administration console. This is the URL that we use for that, and the username password are the user is WebLogic, password is welcome, same user. Okay, this is how you start your OBIEE from the server perspective. If you look at the server, this is how you start it. But again, from the administrative tool perspective, this is what we have seen. This is the entire process where you go here and use. So if I have to start my enterprise manager, if I have to open my enterprise manager, http / localhost :7001/EM, which is enterprise manager. Okay, this is your enterprise manager login screen, and the user is WebLogic, and the password is welcome one. So I say login. Okay, so this is your WebLogic, and within the WebLogic you have the, and within the enterprise manager you have business intelligence. Within the business intelligence you have the core application. Certain things we don't need to know about, but again, yes, we'll get to see, get to understand more over a period of time. So I don't think that I'm trying to make you expertise on this at this point of time. I'm just giving you kind of overview. I'm kind of touching the different parts of OBIEE and showing it to you, so that you have the overall idea. So the plan is, when we start working, right, we'll start exploring each and every aspect of it. So this is your OBIEE core application. This is like Oracle Business Intelligence instance. This is nothing but your OPMN process. Okay, so your instance is this one. If you go back to your Windows services and say refresh your service, you see that your instance is running. So who started this instance? The server startup process has automatically started this instance. When you say start server, right, what happens? It will automatically start this instance. Okay, so once the WebLogic is started, it will automatically start this instance. And if you stop this instance for some reason, or if your instance is not started for some reason, and if you go back to your screen here, enterprise manager, so this process will show as stopped. So if you look at here availability, there are 5-6 services that is running on OPMN. So 1 2 3 4 5 6, yeah, I have the 5. So 1 2 3 4 5 6, there are 6 services running on your system, sometimes 5 services if you don't install the space. There is a BI server, there is a scheduler, cluster controller, Java host, presentation server. So together all this process, we call it as Oracle Process Manager. So Oracle Process Manager is a process which itself has multiple other services running. So I'll show you how to manage these services, how to stop, how to start, and all those things. We'll come back to the Oracle Process Manager at a later point of time. Okay, so this kind of overview that explains you what are the different things that is available as part of OBIEE, um, the cloud part, the browser part. So far we have seen. So other important aspect of OBIEE is the development part, designing part. So how we actually create a repository, how we actually use the administration tool, right? So if I go to the start menu and if I see the programs, and within the programs there is an Oracle Business Intelligence, and you see there's something called a BI administration. So this is nothing but OBIEE administration and nothing but OBIEE designer. So as I told you, the BI administration, the name itself, no, it's a wrong naming convention. And again, they have a reason behind it because people are using the OBIEE for quite some time. And from the day when the name of the tool is like an administration tool. So somehow, Oracle has to continue that naming convention. Otherwise, people may kind of get confused saying, okay, and Oracle has changed a lot of things, and the administration tool is also changed this and that, and people talk. So rather than saying that this has changed, what they did is they just try to give some meaningful name, so they just appended BI, so this become like an BI administration. So in other words, it should be something called BI designer, where you design and develop your repository, you don't administer anything. Okay, so that's a bad naming convention that came from the Siebel time, so it's not the Oracle's fault. So it was there sometime, and they had to continue. So BI administration, don't think like you are doing some administration. Do I need to do the administration of OBIEE, or do I need to work on the administration of the OBIEE? So do I need to know the networking and all for doing this? Don't have those kind of questions. It's purely a designer where you develop your kind of a content or repository content. So there is no administration at this point at this point of time. So there's nothing called administration here. So this is your administration tool, which is nothing but your designer of the OBIEE, where you develop your um, content. So this is, if you look at it here, there's nothing here. This is an empty blank designer. So what you can do is you can simply develop a repository. That's one option, or you can also open a repository which is already existing. So you can open something that is already existing, or you can create a new one. It's your choice. Right. So let's start with creation of a new repository. I'll just try to show you how do we create and how do we manage this repository. So if I want to create a repository, so I go to the file menu, or I can also choose it here. There is a new, right? I can click on the new, it will create. It's kind of MS Word, where I mean the file menus and everything looks similar. That is, that you already know. So I can go to the file, and I can also select the new repository. This is one way, or I can also say new repository. So there is already also something called open. which is like, you can also open the repository which is already existing. So obviously open has a couple of options for you, so which we will discuss later. But again, here also the same thing: open offline, and open MDS, and open online. So remember these two for now. So first is, like, you can create a new one and you can open the existing one. Okay, so if I click on new, right, so it's asking to create a repository. So this is a menu where you use and you follow. So the first thing that you do is you provide the name of the repository. So what are the repository that you create? So coming back to the question, what is repository? So why do we need a repository? Is something that I'll discuss. I mean, I think we have seen a bit of it, and when we are knowing the architecture, but not to worry. I mean, I'm not rushing. I'm just trying to show you how it looks like. But again, we'll go in depth, understand what is the purpose of the repository, what it does, and all. See, sometimes you have to understand that there is no shortcut to learn, and there is no way where I can induce all the knowledge of OBIEE in one class where you can understand everything. So that's not possible. So we have to do it step by step and over a period of time, probably at least in a week. Uh, so you connect the dots. So probably now we'll be kind of creating the dots everywhere, and as we progress within a week, then you start kind of all these dots are connected and you feel a shape. So the same way here, we are just trying to learn individual process, but at some point of time you start realizing the link between these processes and how they work and what they work, and also don't panic if you don't really get something very clear. Right, so I'm creating a repository, so I need to give a name of the repository. So I can give any name XYZ ABC. So I can give a name as a report test, assuming. So it's not case sensitive, you can give any name, doesn't matter. Remember, if I give the report test and there is a location, right? So this is the location where my repository is actually going to get created. This is the location where the repository will actually is going to get created. But again, this location is a complex location. If you see here, there's a very lengthy name. This is, how do you remember? Okay, there is a way you can remember, but again, we don't by heart it, but we'll understand how to navigate to the folder and the folder structure. Okay, and do you want to import metadata? At this point of time, I say no. Import metadata is basically you are kind of planning to import some structures and you start developing the thing. If you are ready to do that and you say yes, and it will automatically ask you for the importing the data and do that process. That is a different process. If you say no, it won't do anything. It will create a blank repository and give it to you, and your choice, like whenever you want to import it later, you can also import it. So for now, no, I'm not importing it. I'm just creating a repository with name report test and so XYZ location, and the password of the repository, I'm going to give the password as a welcome one. So I'm not opening, I'm setting a password. So you understand the difference, right? So you are creating a repository, you're setting a password for this repository. Okay. So you can give any password. So I'm just giving the password as a welcome one. You can give any name. But again, as a standard, I continue to give welcome one across the OBIEE. So I'm creating a repository, and there is a password to the repository. Where is the username then? See, there is no username exist anywhere because it's just a file. So we are protecting the file with a password. So there is no username, which means any user is the same as long as you have the password, like an Excel sheet. When you're opening, and suppose if your Excel sheet is password protected, or if your PDF is password protected, and you give the username? No, right? You just give the password. So which means your PDF file is protected by a password. If you give the password, the file get open. The same way here. So as long as you have the password, it doesn't matter who's using it. That's very important. That's the reason when you are creating the repository, you make sure that you don't lose the password. If you lose the password, or if you share the password with someone else, they can open it. They can open and see your content also. I mean, they don't see the content, but essentially yes. I mean, if they're having access to the network, they can connect and they can also view some of the data. So this is a password where you're setting to your repository report test at this point of time. Okay, so finish. So if you see here, a repository is created with the three layers: physical, BMM, and the presentation. Remember the architecture class we discussed about the repository. We import employee structure, department structure into your physical layer. Then we create the business model where we have the EMPD, EPTs, all the stuff, and this EMPD presentation. So we can do it. I mean, I'm just giving you a heads up, and we will go through the each and every step, and we'll understand the physical layer, BMM layer, and presentation layer, what we do here, what we do here, what we do here, and all the stuff. So that's not a problem. I'm just showing you. So these are the two steps. One step is making sure your server is running, and how to access your server and how to log into your server and all the stuff. That's the first thing. Second step is development, where you how do we create your repository, how do you manage your repository, and all the stuff. So there's two things. So where we have seen how do we use this thing, and at the same time, one more thing that we need to look at is we look at the folder structure and kind of know where do we have our OBIEE. So if you see here, this is the location where I have installed my OBIEE. So when I actually go to the file system, it's not on the GUI screens and all. If I actually go to the file system, suppose say if I install MS Office, so where does it get installed? It will I'll go to the program files. Within the program files, Office or something, I will go inside, right? That is where my OBIEE, my Microsoft Office is actually installed. So in our system, when I install the OBIEE, depending on the location that I provide. So yesterday, like for the installation, I think I gave like an Oracle OBIEE 11G. So, but again, for this installation, I gave Oracle BI. So whatever the folder name that you give within the folder, it will create these many subfolders in the files at the time of installation. So very important folder is instances. As I told you, this is a OPMN process, Oracle Process Manager. Okay, so this is the important folder. At the same time, you have the user projects. This is one more important folder. Okay, so for you to understand this folder structure, probably it's too early for us to go through this folder structure. I can go through, but again, it will be a little difficult for you to understand. So let's explore. Let's get kind of a bit of control on the OBIEE. But again, not necessarily that you have to know this folder structure. But the reason I just wanted to make sure you are aware of this is because tomorrow, if you want to troubleshoot your OBIEE and you want to go to the log files and you want to see what they are doing and how it is working, so probably this will help you. So in other words, it's early for us to work on it. Yes, but again, eventually we will be looking into these folders and all the stuff and trying to understand what they are actually for and which folder does what. Okay, so that's on the kind of get started with OBIEE part, where we'll understand how do we actually use this OBIEE. So probably from tomorrow onwards we'll start developing a simple repository to understand kind of how do we get started, how do we create a repository, how do we start doing the reporting on the repository. So we'll go step by step. Initial class are very, very important, and I'm just trying to make sure that I introduce the environment in every aspect in a clean and systematic way. That will actually build a very good confidence in you, because you are knowing each and every process by name and by means of understanding what it is for. So there is no confusion even if you go anywhere. So if somebody asks you something, so you can comfortably answer, because you are aware of each and everything why it is created for. But I suggest every day, kind of if it is possible, go through the video every day. So you repeat the video before you go for the next class, because it's a learning process, right? So you cannot really remember everything in one kind of one glance of looking at the video or attending the class. So at times you have to repeat the same video kind of 3-4 times. So now you start the video start making sense to you because you are realizing it. So suppose you attend 7 classes, right? So at 7 classes you are in a kind of better position than the first class, because you understand the process. Now you go back and attend the videos from 1 to 7, so the videos entirely looks different to you, because every part, every bit of video, yeah, every kind of concept within the video start making more sense to you, because you connected the dots. So it's not that you attend the class and say that you are good at, I mean, but by looking at it, if I'm teaching something, okay, it's very good, we know all these things and the simple things and all the stuff. But again, when you start thinking on your own, when you have to access the URL on your own, when you start doing the things on your own, you find it bit kind of bit confused or complex. But if you go through the video kind of multiple times, and you try to do the same things again and again for for a couple of times, so it starts building confidence in you. So that's very important in the initial classes. If you do that, then you are having pretty much comfortability using the OBIEE, then the next classes will be very smooth to you. So you kind of you that's also, don't be in with a mindset saying, okay, anyway the recordings are there and I'm busy these days. I know, I mean, I'm not complaining that you're not busy. I'm busy these days, I'm not getting time, very hectic work and all the stuff. That's fine. But just try to spend an hour a day. I don't know, when you're traveling, you can put it on your Google Drive. They're on Google Drive, right? So probably, I don't know, you cannot access, I think you cannot access on your phone or something. Probably you can move it to your phone or something, so while you're traveling you just play it. And not when you're driving, but yeah. So probably whenever you get some times, even you play it on the phone or something. I'm just giving you some hints. But make sure that you spend at least an hour a day um, on this, so that you find it much comfortable. You start loving the tool. Okay. Any questions before we wrap it up? Anything that you don't understand or you need my attention?